We're going to fly to San Diego, buy cars for less than $2,500 each, drive the Pacific Coast Highway from San Diego all the way up to Seattle, and then sell the cars when we get to Seattle.
I want a Volkswagen Cabriolet from approximately the year I was born.
I just wanted to have a pickup, so this would be kind of a fun excuse.
I'll hopefully get something like old and exotic.
Okay, then you can say the first thing.
Go.
Just say your words, people.
George made up the lines. George says the lines. I get to stand here and look pretty.
All right, fine. Drink your juice.
That's what I'm here for.
So, you join us here in fabulous San Diego.
This really looks like San Diego to you?
No. As it turns out, buying 3 cars in San Diego, getting them ready to drive a 1,800-mile road trip, and also shooting video didn't really work out.
Also, if we had tried it and didn't make it out of San Diego, we weren't going to tell you about it.
So we're actually in Indianola, Washington, and we're going to shoot some dramatic reenactments of the videos we intended to shoot in San Diego.
I bought a 1988 Nissan truck back from when there was only one kind that they made. I wanted something that was going to be easy to fix, but probably not needing to be fixed too much. So it mostly works. It runs well, but I have nothing in the instrument cluster, and except the gas gauge. There's no interior lights. I have a fan, but the diverter doesn't work, so it just kind of sends air everywhere. But the seat belts work, and the engine works, and the transmission and the clutch are fine, and the headlights are decent, so that puts me in good shape.
Okay, so let's talk about options. I know on this particular model, the tachometer was optional. Was that option selected?
No.
What about power steering?
I don't know if that was even an option.
Air conditioner?
We're going to go with that also wasn't an option.
Bucket seats?
5-speed?
It was not a 5-speed. No bucket seats.
Cup holders?
There are no cup holders.
How many miles do you think are on it?
Oh.
What's on the odometer? I see 150?
How long's it said that?
Well, so Craigslist listed it at 200,000, and when I pulled the auto history report, I dated odometer readings all the way out to about 350,000 miles, and then the latest reading was about 150. So I'm assuming about 400,000 chassis miles.
I like the paint.
I love the paint.
It's a real, what is this, rattle can red?
It's a great red, but I wouldn't lean up against it.
Now, was this particular model equipped with a check engine light?
It was.
Does it work?
Yes.
How do you know?
It's on.
Ah.
It is the only dash light that works.
Well, I think we've discussed this as much as we can. Let's start in on your car.
Okay, that's fine. As you can see, I've done this properly. I've purchased a car that has features. We've got power steering, we've got power windows, we've got an automatic transmission, we've got air conditioning, we've got airbags. This is a 1991 Volkswagen Cabriolet base model. Yellow. There are a few problems, if I'm honest. The radio's missing. This is the top for the glove box. I don't know what these are, but they say Volkswagen on them and they came with the car. It doesn't start when it's hot. And half of the features that I said it has, I guess it doesn't actually have working. I like it though.
Well, it looks ridiculous.
George, it's a Bumblebee.
We'll just ignore all of the bees that are stuck to the front of it.
I noticed that you're missing one of the pedals.
Well, yeah, I said it was an automatic.
How many speeds?
3. It does just fine eventually.
Is there a pickup in the group that will run circles around you?
It goes faster than your pickup eventually.
Eventually.
It has been customized to some degree.
So, does it work?
Sometimes.
Oh, I see. So you have a hard restart problem.
Yes. So when Volkswagen designed this car, they made a brilliant engineering decision of putting the hottest part of the car, or one of them, this far from the starter solenoid, which doesn't work very well if it gets very hot. So,
Brilliant.
yeah.
Well, you're definitely not lacking for cargo space. I think you could fit, what, maybe...
2 dead bodies back there?
It's surprisingly spacious.
Well, if you've got so much criticism, let's talk about your car.
All right.
You've bought an Alfa.
Yes, I did.
You've bought an Alfa.
I bought an Alfa
You've
Romeo.
bought an Alfa Romeo Spider.
I did.
Everyone told you not to buy an Alfa because they're unreliable.
Yes, but no
Evan.
worse than, well, an MG.
How many buttons do you have in your controls?
2. One that controls the hazards, and one that controls the rear defroster.
The rear defroster. What is your rear window made of?
Plastic. It's Italian. Come on. I have 2 controls for my blower.
All right.
Only one of which works, and only briefly before the fuse blows.
I see.
So these wheels. Look
Yes,
at those.
Yes, they are.
Those are factory, right?
No, they are not. They are not. They are.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, it is really a great way to bring down an otherwise very pretty car.
And the shifter's coming out of your dashboard.
Yes. If I shift into second while trying to make a turn, I stop making the turn because my knee is wedged against the steering wheel.
So one other thing I understand about these old Alphas, they had the battery in a somewhat unconventional position, didn't they?
Yes, I still have not found it. Clearly it is there, because the car does start unlike some cars.
Now, we've given George a lot of crap for his starter, but you have also had a starting problem. Was it caused by the starter?
No, not necessarily. The key they gave me at the dealer sometimes gets stuck in the ignition.
Your key is broken and it gets stuck.
Unless I hit it with a tire iron.
You what?
If you hammer on it with a tire iron, it works.
The problem I'm having is that there's... Oh, I want to just eviscerate your car, but it's not as bad as his.
All right, guys. You ready?
So just to begin the official first stop of our road trip, which we're calling Balboa Park, which is where the San Diego Zoo is, we had just gotten parked on the street. Buses were flying by. I went to lock my door, and it just turned a little bit farther than it's supposed to lock the door. Lock. What fixed it was an absurd amount of WD-40, loosening a couple of screws, and a lot of terrifying elbow grease. WD-40 or anything?
Having at last secured the Bumblebee's cooperation, we made the southernmost stop of our journey, Balboa Park, home to the San Diego Zoo, Museum of Art, and Botanical Building, which was the world's largest wood lath structure when it was built in 1915. From Balboa Park, we set off on the 5, where 65 short miles at interstate speeds took us to the official southern end of California Route 1 and the Pacific Coast Highway, Capistrano Beach in Dana Point, where we stopped to discuss the drive so far.
That was so much fucking fun!
Sufficiently pleased with ourselves, we made our way down to the first beach of the trip.
We ended up having a great dinner nearby, and by the time we were finished, it was dusk. So most of the rest of the journey was in the dark, but still really beautiful. Before this point, I didn't really understand the Alpha. It does have a strange beauty, but it falls short in a lot of other areas. That said, driving through these little beach towns along the 1, the Alpha really started to make so much sense. It's a hard feeling to put words to, but it makes you feel like you outclass everything else on the road.
Here's to you, Mrs. Robinson. Jesus loves
The next morning, George and our friend Eric tried to repair the Bumblebee's broken starter. And after a few hours, they were finished.
So, what was the problem with the car?
So we had a hot start problem. So solenoid wouldn't even engage after I'd been driving for a while, and it got hot.
You got too hot. All right, so we just replaced it. A lot of grease. We put the new starter in. You want to give it a shot?
Let's
see
see
what
if it
happens.
works.
Hallelujah.
So, after an awesome dinner, courtesy of our host Heidi, we discussed how each of us came to own the cars that we have.
Why the Spider?
Okay, so I went and I talked to a couple mechanic friends. And the point that two of the guys I talked to made that I really resonated with is that while MGs might be a little easier to get parts on, Alphas were made properly in the first place.
And when I was explaining all of this that we were planning to my dad, he was unenthused. At one point we were talking about that I think he kind of resigned himself that this was going to happen, so either he could be excited about it or not, and being excited about it would be more fun. And we were talking about that, and all of a sudden he says, or a Mazda B2000. Not something I actually knew what that was. He owned one, and starts talking about, with the reverence that he usually reserves for speaking about the dog, he said that if I bought a Mazda B2000 in cherry red, it would just bring a tear to his eye. So I was like, all right, I've got to try this. So that's what I was looking for.
But...
I thought I had 4 really solid leads on this Mazda B2000. I didn't.
Go ahead.
So I didn't tell either of them what I was doing.
So you could have bought any car for $2,500. Why?
For the rest of your life,
For the love of God.
for the rest of your life, you're not going to forget.
From Valencia, we were off to wine country. Joined by our friend Eric, the trip back to the coast would take us through tunnels and winding mountain roads, so we planned our route carefully in advance. Evan, are you around?
No, I was not. While my colleagues proceeded on our predetermined route, my navigation had selected another road for me, Canaan Road. Luckily, both routes were an excellent trip through the mountains. Soon we all hit the one, albeit separately, and eventually met up at our lunch location, a restaurant semi-famous in the car community called Neptune's Net. After an absolutely heart-stopping but delicious lunch, we got back on the road to Paso. Along the way, we stopped in Oxnard to pick up a new key for the Alpha and hit the worst traffic of the journey so far. We also took a wrong turn and accidentally drove up and then back down a mountain. A little too blurry. That was beautiful.
Oh my God, yes.
I'm glad we stuck with it. We met up with Eric again at Dinosaur State Park. Then had a pretty but otherwise uneventful drive into Paso. At this point, the Alpha was really starting to become more than just a car to me, and I'm pretty sure the others were feeling the same about their own cars.
We're headed to San Francisco via Big Sur. It's gonna be a long ass day. The Alpha was leaking fluid this morning, only to find out that it was leaking washer fluid this morning. So, I think I can live with that.
Big Sur was great. It had beautiful beaches, some great architecture, and just epic views. We stopped several times along the way just to gawk and admire and, frankly, rest a bit.
This is a very acceptable way to spend my day.
Whoa.
That said, the real appeal for us was in the 90 or so miles of just superb driving road.
Oh my goodness, that's beautiful.
A huge ribbon of asphalt carved directly into the side of a mountain range coming out of the sea. No amount of footage can do justice to the views and driving experience that we had. In any vehicle, it would have been a blast, but in each and ours, it was just really something else.
It just keeps going.
This might be the best road ever. This is definitely the best road I've ever driven on.
The only bad part of the entire day centered around one specific make and model of vehicle, the convertible Mustang. It seemed like every time we saw a line of frustrated drivers, at the front was one of these hateful vehicles, seemingly oblivious to the misery they were causing.
The only times we weren't stuck behind them, riding their brakes, waving selfie sticks out the windows, were when they left us in the dust to speed recklessly through small towns and residential areas, waving their selfie sticks out the windows.
We were stuck behind one for what felt like hours. He took every turn like his suspension was about to collapse and ignored every pull-off as if he was the only one on the road. While I'm not saying every convertible Mustang owner should immediately go torch their vehicles and then throw themselves into the sea, I'm not saying that.
Steinbeck called Cannery Row a poem, a stink, and a grating noise. He could have been talking about our cars or the street in Monterey, where we came to see some fish. Anchored by a 300,000-gallon, 3-story high kelp forest, the Monterey Bay Aquarium occupies a converted sardine cannery. Monterey Bay is one of the world's most biologically diverse bodies of water, and the aquarium houses over 35,000 animals of 600 different species. It continuously pumps 2,000 gallons of seawater through its tanks every minute, filtered during the day for clarity and as pure bay water at night, so that the aquarium is ecologically a part of Monterey Bay itself. We could have stayed all day, if not for 2-hour parking and the promise of San Francisco on the horizon.
While pleasant during the day, the sea air took an entirely different meaning at night. It stuck to our windshields, our cameras, our headlights, everything. In addition to that, the road was freshly paved, pitch black, and poorly marked. Plus, come to find out, none of our headlights were really aligned properly. It was an absolutely terrifying drive.
We honestly did not know if we were going to make it.